Hello everyone, welcome back to another adventure in my Coleman Lantern journey. So I'm filming on my bench over here because I need to show you my vise. And I do apologize, I know the lighting and everything is weird, but it's kind of the only place I can do it right now. Someday, I've been saying this for years, someday I'm going to get some kind of nice camera studio kind of thing. But for right now, this will do. So, I hinted in the other videos about taking apart my first Coleman Lantern, which was the 220F. I got that for 15 bucks along with two planes. So I'm going to say I paid 10 bucks for it. I said, oh, how hard could this be to take it apart? So I was watching a bunch of videos on YouTube, and I attempted to take it apart with my son helping me, and I could not get the tip cleaner assembly out. I tried everything. WD-40, PB blaster, heat. It would not come out, okay? So I ended up putting on a pretty big wrench, and he was holding on to it, and the wrench slipped off, and hopefully you can see that, but I crushed the end of it right here. So that sent me on a journey to get a donor lantern, which is a whole nother story, because my buddy Mike came through, but I'm going to show you what he got for me in a different video. But so I did a search for a donor lantern, which is the rest of that one over there. So I got that for 10 bucks. The guy was actually selling it for 20, and he said, "Oh, it was repainted, and he did some other stuff to it." And I was like, "Look, I don't need the vent. I don't need the globe. All I need is the rest of it." I said, "Would you do that for 10 bucks?" And he said, "Yeah." So I'm gonna fix that one up. Actually, I took the parts off I needed, which was this valve assembly. And I'm gonna it's got a couple dents in it. I'm gonna strip it, and that'll be for another video. But today's video, we're gonna concentrate on this, because trying to hold a Coleman Lantern while you're doing a disassembly is not an easy task. So I started searching for a vise. Now they make a vise, but it's a lot of money. I mean, hundreds of dollars. I didn't want to spend hundreds of dollars. So I was checking out Frank from Old Town Coleman, I believe that's it. And he made a pretty big vise that he puts in his vise. And then it has inserts, but he uses clamps. And I kind of really didn't like it. I mean, it works great for him, but I really kind of didn't like it. So I kept searching. And then I found Robert over at BluegrassBushcraft. And he made this vise. And this is pretty much, like, not pretty much, this is his design. I just tweaked it to what I had here. So my battery's flashing. Let me switch my battery, and I'm going to show you this closer. All right, we're all charged up. So like I was saying, Robert designed this, and he actually makes these for sale. He makes them so you can use put three different size lanterns in these. I made this just for two, the 220 series, and then was it 288s? I could put an insert in, but he actually makes them for sale. I believe they're around 75 bucks, which, by the way, after making one of these, $75 is an extremely good price, okay? I didn't spend much money on it as far as the hardware and stuff. I think maybe $7. But, you know, you need a table saw, you need, you know, some type of jigsaw or bandsaw or scroll saw, you know, I end up using a router. If you don't have a router, you're going to need a pretty long drill bit. So again, he sells them for 75 bucks. You know, if you're not into making things yourself, I highly, highly recommend reaching out to him and picking yourself up one, because they're invaluable if you're going to start working on these Coleman lanterns. So we'll go into the details. By the way, I'm going to have all his information in the About section, in the detailed description section, so you can check it out. So the couple things I did differently was, he used, these are called T-nuts, okay? So 1/4 T-nuts. He had ones that were sort of like a rectangle, and they had 2 holes where you could put either screws or nails to hold them on. And that was for this portion here. Okay, and then these are thread locked in. Again, if you want to see the details. But I couldn't find those, so I just put these in with a couple little nails in the corners to hold them. Another thing that I did on this bottom brace, I put these angle irons, and that's not there so much for strength, although it does add a lot of strength. Those are there so that when I'm cranking down on my vise, I'm not eating into this wood. I was looking for a piece of hardwood like maple or something, but even that in your vise, when you're cranking down on a steel vise on wood, I don't care how hard the wood is, you know, unless maybe it's Osage orange or something like that, or ironwood, you're going to start dinging it up. So I just put these angles on it, and that takes care of that problem. And then the other thing is he used Chicago screws here for this to hold. It's just to hold this, keep it nice and flush. It's not tight, it's very loose. As you can see, these actually spin. He used Chicago screws, which is basically like, what do they call them? A post and cap or something like that. If you go to buy them, they don't call them Chicago screws. I'm trying to think what they call them. Post and cap or something like that. But they do sell them in like Home Depot and Lowe's. So I used that instead. And he used wing nuts. I am not a fan of wing nuts. I don't like wing nuts. So I made these. They're just little knobs. These are maple. This portion is maple. This is mahogany. And there's one of these T-nuts inside of here. Okay? And then this is glued on and then sanded round. And it makes an excellent knob. You can get a really good grip on it. So now let me show you how this works. Let me try to move. All right, I was editing the video and I realized I forgot to mention a couple things. So this a 1/4 inch, 1/4 by 20 threaded rod, or all thread, or whatever you want to call it. And the hole has to be drilled through one end to the other. So what I did was, first of all, I didn't have 3/4 inch plywood. All I had was 1/2 inch plywood. So I came up with an idea to glue these two together. Hopefully you could see that right there, okay? So that ends up being 1 inch, which again makes it a little stronger in my opinion than trying to drill through a 1/2 inch, which would have been a nightmare. And instead of drilling the hole, what I did was, since I was gonna, you know, laminate them together, I used this, what's it called, a core box router bit, which is a 1/4 inch. And I used my router table and I just fed it up about, you know, yo big, like a little over 1/8 of an inch. And I routed down both sides on the two pieces. And then when I glued it together, I had a 1/4 inch channel perfectly in the middle. So I avoided having to use any kind of long drill bit or, you know, trying to get it centered, because Robert was even saying that part of it is kind of tricky. He's got it down now because he's been making them. But also for me, I think I'm going in straight and then it comes out crooked. Pretty much 80% of the time, even though I get a drill press. But that was the other tip I could give you. If you don't have the 3/4 inch plywood, you know, you can use two pieces of 1/2 inch, laminate them together. I use Titebond glue. I've used Gorilla wood glue also. It's pretty good, but for me, the best glue for wood is Titebond. I use the interior stuff on this project, but if I'm doing anything with wood outside or whatever, I'll use the outdoor Titebond, and the stuff is amazing. And like I said, with this core bit, I made a perfect hole straight down the middle, no problems. You could even use, if it was a flat bottom bit, if it would you call that, trimming bit or whatever. But basically, as long as it's a 1/4 inch, you can make that groove, and you'll get that hole perfectly centered. Hopefully that shows up. All right, back to the program. My excellent camera skills here. All right, so now again, you just take this, you put it in your vise. Now for me, he has all leather inserts, which is absolutely awesome. Let me try to get this over a little bit more. Hopefully you can see that, the crazy lighting I have here. I was gonna do the leather, and then I decided to kind of keep this relatively tight. And I came up, man, I could tell the lighting is terrible, but hey, it is what it is. Let me try to flip this over a little bit. I don't know if that made it worse or not, but hey. So I ended up coming up with the idea of just using an inner tube, okay? I have here just a hole in it, and I take that hole, put it around the filler cap, the filler, whatever you want to call it. Just start to come down. Just bring it around. Put a little bit of tension on it. Now we loosen this. And again, this just slides right out. And just crank down on your knobs. And again, you can get it as tight as you want, and that doesn't move. So I couldn't get the gas valve out, okay? I put heat on it. I put the gas valve in the vise, grabbed the fount, and I could not move it, okay? I built this vise. I put this fount in it. I got I believe it was a 9/16, regular 9/16 open-edge wrench. I put it on there. I grabbed it, and I went, and I got the valve out. Okay, so this is going to come in really, really, really handy. Okay, so again, check the link out in the description and make yourself one, or reach out to Robert and buy yourself one. Now, I did a couple other things I'm going to show you. Let me take you back over here, my wonderful camera work. All right. Whew. A little nippy out there. Get some coffee. All right, so I got my little toolbox here. Of course, it says Coleman on it. It's a flambeau. All right, so in here, I have some tools. And what I got here is, this is the first tool that I made. Okay, so this is a 9/16 wrench that I ground down, and I put that bend in it. Hopefully you can see that bend. And what this is for is to take the nut out, the retaining nut in the frame. And as you can see now, this sits perfectly flush. Okay, because if you don't have one of these, getting that nut out is very, very tricky. Okay, so that's the first tool. And then all I did was just put some cold glue on it. The only thing I would have done differently is I would have straightened this out. When I heated it up, I would have tweaked that over a little bit before I ground it to make it straighter. Because I think they actually sell these, but it does work perfectly fine. So that was the first tool. Then I made this. And again, I saw this on a couple channels. Robert had it. Some other people had it on eBay. It's basically just a socket, okay? I haven't used this yet, but I think it's going to work fine. If it don't, I may have to use a bigger socket. But basically what this is I ground out that cutout. There's an aluminum insert in there. And what this does is, that's so I don't booger up the valve, okay? So this goes on just like that. Hopefully you can see that. And then you just use your regular socket to loosen that up. Now the way I made mine is I really can't bugger it up too much with the aluminum, even if it, it's like weird. It's like a taper here. I think this is a 1/2 inch, I want to say. Normally, the way I saw them do it, let me get a wrench here, was they would feed the wrench down the top like this, and then tweak it out. And that's what I was doing when I buggered this up. I slipped off it. But the way I made this is, if you could see, it doesn't go on that direction. I have to turn it and it goes on that direction because there's a little bit of a taper. So I have that pretty well centered, and I hope it's going to work. I do have a lantern I'm going to test it on soon, but that was that tool that I made for that. So these two tools I made, they're going to help out immensely on my disassembly. And this, like I said, this is just as pretty much the tools I would need at different sizes. I have some parts in here. The rest of the tip cleaner in here. I got a generator. I got a pump. I decided that I wanted to keep like a kind of a cap on what I'm willing to spend on a lantern. I kind of like the $20, $25 range, you know, because you can get some pretty nice ones. The one thing I can tell you about starting to collect these is again, this is just my opinion, don't be like, oh my gosh, I gotta have that. Just kind of wait, and they'll come along, because a lot of them were made. And if you want to restore them, there's going to be a lot of them that are in, let's face it, some ratty condition, okay? So, you know, if it's all ratty and stuff, I ain't paying more than $5 for it, you know? If it's in decent condition, you know, where I need very minimal restoration to make it look beautiful, you know, I'll go $15, $20 for it. Now, the exception to that is if it has a case. Because the cases alone, I think if you buy a new case, you're paying like $35 for the case. So if I could get a lantern that's, you know, decent shape, needs, you know, minor restoration, and it has a case, especially if it's dated to that lantern, and, you know, they want $30 for it or $35 for it, that's a strong consideration for me. Like, you know, I might go for that. But what I'm really looking for is one of those clamshell cases. I don't know if you ever saw them. They're like a mustard yellow kind of color. I think they look cool. I kind of messed up. There was somebody who had one of those with the lantern for $25. But it was about an hour and 15-minute drive. And I'm like, oh man, I don't feel like driving an hour and 15 minutes each way. And I kept looking at it, looking at it, and then after about 3 weeks, all of a sudden it was gone, and I was like, man, I should have went and got that. I really should have. Even though, you know, it would have cost me more in gas, kind of, you know, to add to the price. But I think that was an exceptional deal. So anyway, here you go. There's the vise. Don't forget to check out Robert's channel and some of the tools that I made. And we'll continue on this journey. I do have one. I'll give you a hint. It's from 1958. That's going to need a lot of work. And that's where all this stuff is going to come into play. So thanks for coming along. I'm sending you all much, much love and appreciation. I hope you all are staying well. I hope you all have a wonderful day. And we'll see you on the next one.